What's going on, you guys? Welcome to another episode of The Gabriel Show. Now, listen, in today's episode, I want to go over a topic, okay? I don't believe we need a big house, all right? A lot of millennials, Gen X, just everybody has this in their mind that they believe they need a huge house, right? That's the American dream. And I never truly believed in that. I never did, okay? Let me show you guys something. Now, this is my property right here. To be honest with you, it was a foreclosure. I hooked it up a lot. Now, it probably looks a hot mess right now, to be honest with you, okay? I got a little man here knocked out. It's a 2 bedroom, 2 bathroom, and God is good. I got this property during COVID, so I got a really good deal on it and a really good interest rate. But I remember when I was going to buy this property, a lot of people was telling me why. You're an RN. You're an RN. You shouldn't. And at the time, before I was dating my wife, my parents knew my wife was a nurse as well. And she was there thinking like, hey, you guys are both going to be nurses. So two nurses, you could easily afford a huge house, 500,000, 700,000. And for me, I just didn't believe in that because, guys, hear me out, okay? So I went on Zillow and I looked at the houses that I could have bought, right? And then I looked at the mortgage rate and how much I would be paying a month. And you know what? I guess I could really thank my past and a lot of, because I like to learn from other people's life, right? Not really mistakes, but what other people go through, okay? So working at the nursing homes, I work with a lot of CNAs who literally owns gigantic houses, okay? But these CNAs, they cannot take a day off, all right? And not only CNAs, nurses too, okay? They're working every single day, basically, working two jobs. And then they become a slave to their jobs because they have to obey by every single rule. Not that you're trying to break the rules, but the thing is, you can't advocate or say anything. Why? Because you are tied down to your biggest expense, your mortgage, right? So I try to explain to my mom, like, no, I don't want to get a gigantic property that's going to make me turn into a slave, so to speak. I don't know if that makes any sense for you guys, but listen, the borrower is slave to the lender, right? It says it in the Bible, and I understood that. For me, a big house is just like a big mortgage. Unless you have a wealth where you could just buy it out in cash, cool. But if you don't and you just want to take out a loan for it, I don't know. I don't think that's the best use of your money. You know what I mean? I feel like you could deploy your capital into doing other things. And that's what I tried to explain to my family, but they didn't understand. But you know what? I think living in this property has been one of my greatest financial investments besides my wife and that ring I gave her. But it's been the greatest investment for me. Growing up, I lived in a 1 bedroom apartment. And then later on, we moved to a condo, 3 bedroom condo. But I had all my siblings, right? I'm the youngest of four girls. So I grew up very tight with my family, okay? And in some families, if your house is truly big, if you get mad at your mother or your father or your sibling, you could just go to the east wing and you probably won't have to see them. You won't have to see that family member for months if you don't want to. Just go to your room. You could eat in your room. You could do whatever you want in the east wing. If your other sibling you don't like is in the west wing, shoot, it's like Harry Potter. You got the Slytherin corridor and the Gryffindors and you see, in my small house, my small apartment that I lived in growing up, if you had beef, you had to squash that beef right away. Okay, you had to figure it out, fight it out, whatever the case is. But we really got to learn each other. We really got to learn how to live with each other. And I feel like that helped me with my social skills when it comes to learning people and getting to know people out in the real world. I feel like I became more of a social person. And it actually helped me with YouTube too, because I was just in all my sisters. I was that little brother, you know what I mean? I was able to talk, and even though we got into fights, we were able to solve fights. And I don't know, I feel like that truly helped me in regards to my social life growing up, right? So that's the one thing I like about that. And that's something I'm trying to show my son too. Eventually he is going to have a sibling. I don't know if it's going to be a girl or a boy. But if it's a girl, I understand when he gets older, eventually they're going to have separate rooms, right? But if he has a brother, I'm telling you guys, man, they get in a bunk bed and we riding this out to the end of time, man. Because let me tell you something, okay? When you buy a bigger house and your excuse is, oh, I want to give the kids more space to run around and more space to do this, X, Y, and Z, you got to think about it, okay? Your kids, the time you have with them is very temporary. All right. And a lot of us are not maximizing the time that we could be for our children because we take on a big mortgage, we take on a huge loan just so that we could put our kids in a bigger box, right? We put our kids in a bigger box, but now we don't have the time to spend with them because we're going to work to pay for that box. See what I'm trying to say? I know parents, mother and father, who are busting their ass to literally pay for a box, which is your house, right? Your mortgage. That's what I consider a house to be, a box. And you're leaving, your kids with babysitters or bringing them to daycare. But then you blink and you know what? They're 18 years old. They're 18 years old and now it's time for them to go to college. So not only did you take on a huge loan paying for that huge house, there's people who also take on, help because if think about it, all your capital is going towards a mortgage. Will you truly be able to invest until 529? You won't be able to do that. So what happens is you end up taking on loans for your kids, right? They end up taking student loans. So now they're just trapped in this cycle. And not only that, as a parent, you're going to do that parent plus loan. You're going to sign up to them. How much debt are you trying to take? Now you're going to be a slave forever. See what I'm trying to say? So now you're paying for these student loan debt. You're paying for this gigantic mortgage because of your kids. You want to give them the space. And the kids have the audacity to talk about they moving out. Can you believe that? I mean, nowadays it's harder because of the economy. A lot of kids are staying home longer. They don't got a choice. But back in the day, the kids would turn 18 and they'd just be out talking about, I'm going to college, I want a dorm, right? Take on a bigger loan, take on bigger debt, and not the cycle continues, right? And now you're left alone when all your kids leave the nest at home with a gigantic mortgage. By then, you done worked 2 jobs for so long. You're probably in your 40s, in your 50s. You have arthritis. Your back hurts. Going up these steps hurts. And you know what? Like I like to say, your body might betray you, right? So now you're having a hard time going up these steps. God forbid something happened to you. Now you got to sell the property, right? You got to sell the property because how many people do I know nowadays live in a gigantic house and they're an empty nester, right? Bunch of their kids' rooms, they're just trying to put on Airbnb. They're trying to make sense of the house, but they know deep down in their soul it makes no sense. Even if they pay off the mortgage, it makes no sense to pay this gigantic property tax. The property tax is going up. I know people who pay off their mortgage and their property tax becomes more than what they're paying in the mortgage. So eventually they end up downsizing. They either sell the house or if they don't want to sell the house, I know a lot of people who just refuse to sell the house and they stay in the house by themselves. But like I like to say, in not all cases, but if you're working your entire life really hard, right? Paying debt, paying for your kids' loans, paying for your mortgage, and you're not giving that time for your body, right? You're not giving that time for your kids. You're not spending Christmases with your kids. You're not spending time after school with your kids. But you're literally, it's like a car, guys. You're not even doing oil changes. You're just driving that thing down to the ground. Our body is a vehicle just like your car. And eventually it will get to that 100,000 mile mark. And what happens is you get old. You get old. And you see, being an ICU nurse, being a nurse who works at the nursing homes, I've witnessed a lot of patients who have to sell their assets. They have to sell their assets. Even if the house is paid off, it don't matter. It's no longer safe. We do PT evals, and you know what? They can't go up the steps. You didn't think about that, right? Because when you were younger, you were like, oh no, I like this house. It's so big, and I have 4 bedrooms upstairs, and I have all these things. But guys, think about it. How many beds can a human being sleep on? You could only sleep on 1 bed per night, right? Unless you want to literally put the alarm clock on and switch rooms every second and sleep on another bed. But I don't think anybody do that. That wouldn't be optimal for your time, right? You could only sleep on 1 pillow,
All right, well, I sleep on 2 pillows.
right? And you know what's crazy? I did an experiment this year and I've stayed at several Airbnbs this year alone. I stayed at mansions, I stayed at penthouses, I stayed at all these different places. And That was just really huge. And it was an experiment. Guys, I was scared for my life, okay? Because as the man, when I heard a sound downstairs in the basement, in the east wing in the dungeon, my wife said, baby, go check it out. Who, me? I'm not trying to check it out. You check it out. But you know what I mean? I'm just like, yo, I stayed at another Airbnb recently and I had to go warm up my son's bottle. And I was just thinking about how far the kitchen was. I was like, damn, why do I have to walk a mile and a half to get a bottle and run back upstairs? And it was dark. You know, I don't know, guys. I feel like there's better use for your capital. You know, when I decided to get this small house, like my mortgage realistically is a blessing, but it's like $1,100 a month, right? At one point, I wanted to pay off this property, but it wouldn't even make sense because you don't truly own anything in America, right? There's still an HOA, there's still a property tax. So I decided to deploy most of my capital into investing, right? But the thing is, when you look at me from the outside, you're like, oh, boo hoo. He lives in a foreclosure and he don't have the white picket fence. He don't have this. But you guys don't understand what I have. You can't see what I have. I have the freedom, right? I have the time freedom and my investments are invisible, right? Not including the equity from my house, not including the equity I have in my 401k or brokerage accounts, right? I have that time freedom, which is the number one asset. Why? Is because I refuse to become a slave to what society wants, right? I refuse to get that gigantic mortgage just so that I could sell it off, just so that I could sell it in the future because my kids want to move out and I have to downsize. No, I got my retirement home from the jump. Okay, I got my retirement home from the jump, and I feel like we have to be methodical as people and as registered nurses, and we have to go against what society wants us to do if we truly want to build wealth. Now, I understand it's going to be very hard to convince you to change your mind about this goal of the American dream of buying a big house, but I just want you guys to know that your time here on this earth is very temporary. Very temporary. I know a lot of people right now who is saving up capital in a high yield savings and just hoping that the interest rates could come down. But think about the average income of an American citizen. It's about what, like 70,000? The minimum down payment nowadays is over $100,000, right? By the time you save that up just to buy a box, all right, just to buy a box. And you know what's crazy? I feel like I don't know if it's just me, but I there's something called death, right? We're all going to die, and we're all gonna go into this. What is it, 4x4 size box? You know what I mean? We're all gonna go 6 feet under. So I don't know. I just feel like we should be using our capital like towards doing other things because we really spend most of our time at work, right? We spend 8 hours on a bed, right? That's why I invest into my bed. I like having a good, comfortable bed. But then we spend the other 8 hours at a job, right? Working a 9 to 5. I don't care how much money you make. But a lot of us, whether you're rich or poor, we spend a lot of time staring behind a screen. We don't even go outside anymore. But it's because we want to buy a bigger box. Guys, if I was to put you inside of a mansion, right? Gigantic mansion, let's say a castle from back in the days. But here's the catch, right? Here's the caveat. There's no Wi-Fi. There's no Wi-Fi in this castle. You wouldn't give a damn about that castle, right? You wouldn't care nothing about that castle. You'd rather go into an apartment with Wi-Fi, okay? You see what I'm trying to say? Like, I don't know. When it comes to houses, when it comes to cars, when it comes to materialistic possessions, I like to look at it differently because consumerism is really a trap. You do not need a big house, right? You do not need a big house. What you need is a roof over your head. You need hot water to shower in. It's a plus if you have a laundry room within your house, if you have these basic amenities. But that, don't you see a lot of people are moving into these apartments, these futuristic apartments that come with all the amenities? Because people just really want to simplify their life. And I think that's the future. That's the future. I know people's going to argue with me and say, hey, it's really good because you could pass on these homes to, your kids and after, that's a way to pass on generational wealth. And I do understand that. And I do know that real estate is a good investment because, not only the appreciation, you could rent it out and make money that way too. But what the heck do you want to do on a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday? Like, what's your goal? What's the life you want to live? What's the type of life you want to live? You don't necessarily have to be a slave. You could lower your expenses, downsize, and with that margin, you could live that life you truly want to live instead of being trapped in the matrix. I don't know, man. You don't need a big house, guys. At this point, I'm just talking. I'm just yapping. But that was just in my mind. I hope you guys understand what I was talking about. But I love and appreciate you. I think I got to change my son's diaper. Peace. I mean, something's really different. Something's really specific. I mean, I really made a milli in a minute. I haven't made a milli in a minute. Maybe if I really make a minute. How much do you make in a minute? Well, I make a lot. Listen, man, the dividend, the make I block. Oh my God, why are they trying to block my stock? Trying to cop a GameStop stock. But damn it, boy, did you make a milli in a minute? I don't know. Haven't been here in a minute. Haven't been in the zone, man. Yeah, I'm finished. And they let me off, man. Yeah, I'm finished.